Yo, what is good, Knicks Nation? Welcome into another New York Knicks media live stream. Today, I got a special guest. It is Terry from NYK Terry Tray. You guys know him very well. He is very well known in the New York Knicks community. What is going on, Terry? Welcome to the show.
What's up, Richie? Been on the grind. I want to congratulate you on your success the past few weeks. Thanks for having me on. Hot take, not even a hot take. I think this is my first ever live YouTube video about the Knicks. Everyone, I did do like some Knicks fan TV's episodes where I kind of popped on, but this is the first one where I've done like a one-on-one thing. So it's awesome. I'm glad to get into it. A lot to talk about.
Yeah, we got a lot to talk about. And again, I thank you so much for joining in on the stream. I've been watching your channel since you created it. And when I made this channel and I was going live, I had a lot of people in the stream, in the chat saying, hey, you got to hit up Terry and Trey. You got to get them on the stream. And that's exactly what I did. And you were luckily enough responded. And here we are today. So we got a lot to get into. We got Knicks Training Camp off and running. We got a lot of people talking to the media. We heard from Coach Thibs. We heard from all the players. There's trade rumors. We got expectations. There's no one going to be at the Garden. So it's going to be a lot that me and Terry will get into. If you guys are not subscribed to Terry, make sure you do so. I linked it down below in the description. And Terry, for the people that don't know who you are and have never come across your channel, do you want to just introduce yourself and tell them what they got on your channel?
All right, so it's me and my mom. Yes, my mom. She looks young as hell, but it's my mom. We've been Knicks fans forever, going to the Garden forever. One day, a couple years ago, we decided why not just like put this on YouTube, and we have season tickets. So it's been a really fun experience. We meet players, we do fun skits. We just have a lot of fun with being a Knicks fan. I wouldn't say we're like a news channel, even though we obviously talk about everything. We just kind of like enjoy, the process of being a Knicks fan, the highs and the lows. When things happen that we like, things happen that we don't like. So definitely check it out. We have a lot of fun over there. And leave a comment, subscribe, and we'll definitely talk to you.
Yeah, make sure you guys go subscribe to Terry's channel. I linked it down below in the description. So the first thing I want to talk about today is I want to hear Terry's opinion on Leon Rose's first offseason as the New York Knicks president. So as we know, this was the first time we get to see Leon Rose's vision. And he went into free agency, he went into the draft, and he did a lot of things. And he did some things that is really hard to explain in terms of with the cap, with all these trades. And there's a lot. And I asked CK2K very similar questions last week, and he brought his thoughts on Leon Rose. So I'm very curious to hear what Terry has to say. So Terry, what is your first thoughts of Leon Rose's first offseason as the Knicks president?
Right. So obviously, like you said, busy offseason, and a lot of busyness at the margins, right? Nothing big happening, but they were clearly working at like the high level, the mid level, the low level. Like they were trying to get a lot of things done. So on that note, I feel like when I grade Leon Rose or think about his offseason, I have to look at it from like different ways, different perspectives. From the wheeling and dealing and the desire and ability to work on the minute details, I'm like 10 out of 10. Because I'm not used to a Knicks front office doing little things. I see them doing big things or trying big things and failing, or just doing like whatever the status quo is. And I was so impressed draft night. And I know it may seem like, a low bar, but the fact that they're able to do what they did draft night, when you think of, basically moving up on both picks, using the Ed Davis deal, getting some picks in. I just like when a front office is working that hard because I can tell they're working hard. But then I also feel like, okay, if they're working this hard at these little things, they're thinking deeper about the big picture as well. And I feel like a good organization, you got to hit all those tiers. So from that point of view, I loved it. Now from like kind of where we ended up, I think I want to settle around between a B and a B plus. Now, there's so many things that happened this offseason, and I talked myself into so many things that if you told me before, I never would. I convinced myself about Gordon Hayward in an hour and a half. I sat in my bed. I remember it so well. The rumor broke. I sat in my bed that night, and I was just thinking, And I'm like, this guy actually, he's not going to really hurt anyone. He kind of does everything good enough. And if it's a short deal, we got the money to spend, and he helps like raise our, our floor. And now the young guys are better because of him. And we have some good winning basketball, because that's one of the things, right? As much as we debate the future, we're still fans. Like, I don't want Russell Westbrook here because I know what that could have led to down the line. But I know if he came here the day after, I would be like, oh my God, we got Russell Westbrook, right? So it's like that hard thing to gauge. So for me, I feel like it's been a B to a B plus. I really like the sightings. I think it's a more advanced version of last summer. So last summer, if you think about it, right? We swing for the fences, we miss. They don't really mortgage the future, thank God. And Steve Mills would have done it if he had a little bit more time. But in the summer, they didn't really mess up anything for the long term. They get all these guys on one-year deals, team options, all that. But I feel like they overpaid on a lot of guys, right? So Bobby Portis, was he 15 mil, I think? Wayne Ellington was like 10. Everyone seemed to be almost double their valuation, or at least maybe 30% more. Whereas this year, it feels like we got comparable guys, but way cheaper. So if you want to do like direct comparisons, right? Look at Nerlens Noel, who comes in backup big. Last year, Bobby Portis was the backup big, but you're paying him 15 mil versus paying Nerlens Noel 5, right? You bring in Marcus Morris. Let's say he's your premier wing guy you brought in last year. I know we had to overpay to get him because of the Spurs thing, but what was he making? Maybe 18 in the end? I can't remember off the top of my head. But Alec Burks, who's going to be, I think, our best wing signing, is making 5. So I feel like they got better assets to trade at the deadline, because I know last year we were really excited about the deadline, and it was hard to get anything done because it's a lot of money to move. It's really hard to move 15, 16 million at a deadline to a contender. Whereas this year, and I do hope that Burks stays here, we do well, and Burks and Rivers and these guys stay and become like good role players for us into their 30s. But if we do end up trading them for assets, 5 mil is so easy for a contender to absorb. 3.3 mil is so easy for a contender to absorb. And Noel as well, 5 mil as well. So to me, it's like, I really like that. So I think a B in the end, because I do feel like they did want to do more. We praise them on their frugality and their calmness, but there's some rumors that they were really, they almost did the Hayward deal. They're ready to risk it all for Gordon. So I'm still a little bit iffy, but I do think, there's looking forward there. You have to take calculated risk. So it's not that we should just be calm forever. We've been sitting on cap space now. And I know, we were talking about this before the stream. I think next year, and we're going to get into this more, I think next year they're definitely going to start making some bets and spending that money. But for his first offseason, COVID, all that stuff, I really like the front office he's built. I didn't really talk about that. I love the fact that we've gone so analytical for the first time. It feels like we got proven guys from really good franchises here. So I trust what's going on back there. I like the team that he's put on the court. I like the things I can see the team doing. And I'm just hoping this year becomes an establishment year for us. That's all we need. We do not need to be really good. Last year should have been an establishment year. Last year and a half. That's why I get so pissed when I think about David Fizdale, because I'm like, there were literally, you could literally say a year and a half. I cannot tell you what happened, like positive for the franchise as a whole. It's just that like he was there. There was no real system. I can't point back and say this happened because he was here. And now with Tibbs now in year 1, it's kind of in a weird way like Fizdale back in year 1. So it's like, it feels like wasted time, but I hope that this time, and I feel like it's going to happen because Tibbs is a real coach. This time we're going to see a base level, like this is what the Knicks are, and we can go from there.
Yeah, I know. I couldn't agree more with everything you just said. I think Leon Rose is laying out a foundation, and he has that long-term vision instead of that short-term vision that we're so accustomed to with the Steve Mills type of way, where it kind of felt like for me personally, all these previous Knicks front offices, they were just going out there signing, okay, we have a lot of cap space. Okay, who's available? Who are we giving a max contract to? Because we need to win now. Because if we don't win now, I'm going to be fired next year. It kind of felt like they were trying to fight for their own job security. And now that Leon Rose came in the building, he kind of has the long-term contract where he knows like, okay, I need to build this team the right way. And that is through the draft. And that is being really smart with the cap. And you hit it on the nail with that. And it's just really refreshing to see someone that has that long-term vision, that understands we need to build the foundation. And like you said, we should have did it last year. That should have been the year. But this is the year where we finally have a very well-respected head coach as Tom Thibodeau. He hired a lot of assistant coaches that we are really excited about, like a Kenny Payne, like a Woodson, and all these guys. And my expectations for this New York Knicks team this season is, I always compare it to the Brooklyn Nets, not a Nets fan whatsoever, but what they did over there is they won with their core.
Yep.
That's what attracted Kyrie and KD. They didn't just go to the Nets because they hate the Knicks. They went to the Nets because they won with a young core. So if the New York Knicks can be competitive this year, and I'm not saying go to the NBA Finals or anything, but if they could be competitive, maybe get the 8th seed or maybe miss out on the playoffs and still show that there's a room for improvement and they're like a star or two away from really being contender, that is when a superstar will look at the New York Knicks and say, wow, that team definitely is a star away from the championship. And I want to be part of that because we always say the Knicks is the mecca of the basketball. And if you win in New York, you are going to be considered the king. You're going to be all this stuff. And right now, it is not an attractable place for stars because we have been losing for a long time. But now it is time to flip the narrative. Hopefully,
Yes.
Tom Thibodeau can instill this culture and we can go back to that old school New York Knicks defensive ways, because everything we're coming out of media day, everything we keep hearing from these guys, oh, what's different from Tom Thibodeau than any other coaching staff? They're like, defense. So, I mean, we better be a great defensive team because Tom Thibodeau is doing that. And I'm really excited to see what Tom Thibodeau is going to do for the New York Knicks. So that's going to segue into our next topic, which is Tom Thibodeau. So, Terry, what is your thoughts on Tom Thibodeau as the head coach, and go into like when we first hired him and who you wanted to get and all that stuff and his staff that he brought in?
So personally, I was really on the Kenny Atkinson train. For me, that's our guy. So you're talking about that Brooklyn team and their success. And it's weird. Like, I don't care about Brooklyn either. I never even felt jealous when they were doing well. But I would see Atkinson playing with them, and they were a young, fun team. And like you said, it was the establishment that they needed to then move on and get bigger players. So I did want Atkinson. That said, we got Tibbs. And, going back to Fizdale again, with Tibbs, I know we have a real coach. I know he's going to hold guys accountable. I know he's going to install a system, even if the offense is a little bit messy, which it was with Fizdale, I'm not going to lie. And it could be a little bit with Thibodeau to start. And we'll talk about training camp as well, where I think we could see some issues on offense. But if he's saying, you know what, year one, basement, I'm throwing the cement in, defense. That's who we're going to be. We do not have the talent to compete with better teams. So guess what? We're going to annoy the hell out of them. That's a smart strategy. It sounds like a basketball movie, like a motivational basketball movie, right? Where it's like, oh, you guys aren't good, just play really hard, like Coach Carter or something. Yeah. But that's the truth. If you don't have the top, you can get so far in this league off of effort and consistency. And what I feel, the vibe coming out of training camp with Tibbs and his staff is that this is what they're going for. They do not want to lose. This is not a tanking season. Even if it makes sense looking at the draft and all that stuff coming up, they are going in, especially to start the season, and we're going to play hard every game. We're going to establish what New York basketball means and who we are, and then we'll take it from there. I do think, you combine that with a front office that's so proactive that they'll be very happy to sell off assets at the deadline if it doesn't work out. So I think we're going to hopefully win on both ends, whether it's, the season went the way we wanted, so, it's good, we don't do anything, or it's going horribly. Let's definitely kind of not tank, but let's sell off assets, be smart about it. So I am happy for Tibbs. I feel like a real coach is here, which I haven't felt like for a long time. And with coaches like this, I never really see a spectacular failure if it doesn't work out well. I think the worst case for Thibodeau is that we're a bad offensive team, but the guys have much better habits. And then when you extend it to the staff, we've never had a staff that has this much clout in the league. Yeah. I have another hot take. I'm giving out hot takes early. Johnny Bryant will bring Donovan Mitchell here in the next couple of years if Donovan Mitchell wants to leave. If Donovan Mitchell reaches a breaking point with Utah where they're losing in the second round, and I know he just signed that deal, so I guess, there's 4 or 5 years left. If, we've seen it. We've seen what the NBA is like now. Guys get into their deals, and 3 years in, they're losing a bit. They feel restless. They want to leave. So getting guys in who have respect around the league is smart. It helps. Kenny Payne. Everybody's talking about Kenny. I've never heard an assistant coach spoken about this much. Everything. Oh, Kenny Payne's doing this with me. We in our last video we were talking about Mitch putting Kenny Payne putting Mitchell Robinson under his wing, and my mom made the joke. I'm like, he probably have a long wingspan because at this point everyone's under Kenny Payne's wing. So having someone with that kind of respect, and I know the Kentucky stuff is a little bit murky. It's getting close to, I'm like, And, we had issues with CAA in the past. But listen, if it works, it works. The proof is going to be on the court. So I'm happy what Tibbs has built. I'm happy bringing Woodson back. A little bit of nostalgia there. But I think when it comes to putting together a staff, you have to hit all those different things, right? You want the disciplinarian. You want the father figure. You want the cool uncle. You want all these things because guys have different personalities. The season goes up and down. You'll be able to manage and balance it at any time. And I feel like now we have a serious staff. When I look back to Keith Smart and David Fizdale, I think they were both very similar, both very kind of buddy-buddy, and we never really got the sense there was accountability there. So now I feel like, okay, we got all these different guys who are proven, and we have so many people this summer. It's insane. Honestly, I lost track. I was going to work on a video of like every person we hired. And at some point, they just kept hiring. And I'm like, I can't do this anymore. So we've definitely, I feel like every guy on the team can get individual attention if they need to. So I want to see what he does. I'm excited for this first preseason game because I have no idea what to expect really in terms of even lineups. We'll have our predictions, but Tibbs might surprise us. And I think for him, after the Minnesota job, he obviously he was here before as an assistant and everything. Guys, when they come here, these coaches, they know that this job could define their legacy in the NBA. I know Fizdale believed that, and obviously it didn't work out for him. But I think Tibbs, who's like a basketball obsessive person, if I'm not mistaken, he has like no wife and no kids, I think. So I remember reading, I think he just I remember he was talking about like between Chicago and Minnesota, and all he did was like watch basketball nonstop. So I'm like, he's going to work hard. He's going to try his best here. And I think given the caliber of coach he is, and you saw what he did with Brooklyn, with the Bulls, and that Bulls team at times wasn't that talented when they had those crazy injuries. He was just putting random guys out there, and they were performing and running the system and playing hard and having great moments and getting to the playoffs and stuff like that. So I think not this year. I don't expect us to do too well. I think Tibbs comes in this year, establishes a baseline culture of the guys on the team. I think we end up taking like 8 of the guys, six of the maybe like 6 to 8 of the guys into next season. But I think we're going to evaluate. Tibbs is going to see, okay, who can I take here with me to do what our long-term plan is? So that's what I want to see. It's all about establishment, pouring the cement in, laying the tracks, getting things started. And then next year you can start to push on the pedal and accelerate.
Yeah, I mean, again, you hit it on the nail. I mean, I feel like me and you align on the vision of what we expect from the Knicks this year and what we want to see and what we want to see from this season is what I'm trying to say, because this is the season where we want Coach Thibs to come in here and start the foundation. We need to lay the cement, like you just mentioned. We need all the players to buy into what he is coaching and what he's preaching. And hopefully he can really get the best out of our young talent that we've been waiting to take the next level. Guys like Ntilikina, RJ Barrett going to his second year, Kevin Knox, all these people that we've been drafting over the years, we've been waiting for them to take the next step, but they really haven't. And maybe that's because of the coaching. Maybe they've never had that top tier coach that can really unlock their abilities, because I feel like David Fizdale is too much of a person's coach. I love Fizdale as a human being, but as a basketball coach, he's a great guy, but he's just too much of he's an assistant coach. That's really what it is.
Assistant coach.
And I just like how Thibodeau, he's going to hold these players accountable. I feel like Fizdale was the opposite. I feel like if you do something in practice or in the game where he messed up, Fizdale's like, it's okay, and then Thibs is going to scream his head off if something happens. And that's what needs to happen, because we're playing New York Knicks basketball here. This is going to be a completely different team. And I'm hoping that, like you said, we can get 6 or 7 guys returned from the roster from this year into 2021 next year. And that's where we can start building the foundation, because we need to build a culture. And we've been saying this for years, but now it is the real time, because everything's brand new. The front office is new. The head coaches is new. The assistant coaches is new. A lot of new players are in the building. So only thing we can hope for is that the New York Knicks can just prove to the league that we are finally an up and rising team. And we are 1 star away, or 1 or 2 stars away, and a couple more draft picks to being a serious contender. And that's really all we can wish for. So if you guys are enjoying today's live stream, make sure you smash that like button if you are enjoying Terry joining the show. And I'm so happy that Terry came in here and joining the Knicks Media live stream. So far, we're already 20 minutes in, and we have a lot to talk about. So if you guys are enjoying this episode, make sure you smash that like button. And let's get into the next topic. Let's see. So this is a topic that every single Knicks fan has their own projected starting 5. And I think the point guard spot is the most controversial spot, because nobody knows. I mean, one person wishes this, but they project that. So my question to you, Terry, is 2 questions. What is your projected starting lineup that you think Thibodeau is going to do, not on preseason, but opening night? And then what's your starting 5 that you would do if you were the coach?
All right, so I'll give you what I think we probably start with this season. So this is opening night, not on Friday against the Pistons, right? I think Friday we're playing the Pistons. Yeah. So this is opening night. I think we're going to see, and I'm not happy to say it, but I think it's going to end up being Peyton, RJ, Obi, Randall, and Mitch.
Wow.
I'm really against personally the Obi Randall thing, but I've been a little bit more convinced about Obi's shooting over the past few weeks. Even today, they posted a video of him
I
like
was
just
about to say after all the
nailing.
videos,
Yeah,
just knocking it down the
right.
gym.
So here's the thing. Look, shooting is easy in training. You got to do it with a hand in your face. So we'll see. But provided, there's a chance that maybe we see that lineup in preseason and it's horrible. And then Tibbs realizes, okay, absolutely not. Because I'll give you a secondary lineup, which is where I think DSJ comes in. I think Obi's on the bench, and I think Alec Burks starts. So I could see basically DSJ, Alec Burks, RJ, and kind of Burks and RJ kind of switching basically Randall and Mitch. I do not see them benching Randall. Even though it makes sense, Obi's an older rookie. I can give you a million reasons it makes sense to start Obi. I just don't see them benching Julius Randle. And Alec Burke, just on that second lineup I gave, he's a really good playmaker. I don't know if people realize how good a playmaker he can be. So if you have him DSJ, Dennis, we don't know what we're going to get from him. You at least have a secondary playmaker in that lineup that can also hit a shot. So I think we can see that. Now, in terms of my preferred starting lineup, I really want to see RJ and Frank in the backcourt. I felt like last year, and listen, I know Frank is a big debate topic for everyone. I know we're going to talk about him and the trade rumors later. To me, I look at it like very simply. End of last season, if you look at last year, Mike Miller comes in, we go 17-27 under Mike Miller. We were 4-18 under Fizdale. So obviously things improved quite a bit. I know the schedule was a little bit easier, but we saw kind of more structure, all that stuff. Frank had kind of become basically the backup point guard for Alfred, and his minutes were pretty consistent. And we kind of saw him and RJ really build a rapport. They seemed to know how to play off each other. Frank's shooting got a little bit better, 50% on corner threes last year. So I see something brewing there. Obviously, Tibbs is going to have his own idea about how things should run. And Frank isn't someone, I think, that you see him immediately and say, oh, you got to start that guy. I think he's the kind of guy that he grows on you over time, right? So I don't really expect to see this at all, but I would be really interested in a Frank, Burks, RJ, Obi, Mitch lineup. And then I'm giving you like 4 lineups now. My dream lineup. Here's my dream lineup. If these guys actually were able to do this and play at this level, would be Frank and Quickly in the backcourt, then RJ, Obi, Mitch. That's a super young lineup, obviously. But you know who I didn't bring up? Kevin Knox. Because you've been hearing good things out of training camp. I've kind of not put him in as a starter in my head, but now that I'm thinking about training camp, you never know. He could actually end up surprising.
You never know. That segues perfectly into my starting 5. So who I want to see, not my projected, is Frank, RJ, Knox, Obi, Mitch. That's what I would love to see. That's a young and hungry starting 5 that I feel like could be the potential young core for this team for the future. I honestly feel like Kevin Knox, we're going to get into Kevin Knox in particular because I want to hear your take on him. And we're hearing really good things about him at a training camp. Thibodeau came out there and said he's having 2 really good practices. When he takes good shots, they're going in. And I think that the ceiling on Kevin Knox there isn't a ceiling. I really think the only thing that is missing from his game is his mind and his ability to be confident in himself. And we're going to get to Kevin Knox, but we're still talking about the starting 5. So that's really what I would love to see the most, because I feel like Frank at the 1 will give you the best defensive ability in the perimeter. And then we got Mitch down low. And then my projected starting 5, what I assume will be the starting 5 come opening day, not this Friday. But it really hurts me to say this because I don't want this to be the starting 5. But I think it's going to be Elfrid Payton, RJ Barrett, Alec Burks. They can go either way. Julius Randle, and Nerlens Noel.
Ooh, yes.
I'm a little worried. I don't want to see Nerlens Noel start. But I do have a little something in me that I feel like Thibodeau is going to start Nerlens Noel. You heard him talk about Mitch, you heard him talk about Noel, and it seems like Thibodeau is way more in love with Nerlens. And another thing about Thibodeau is he has said over and over again, nobody is going to be given any minutes. They're all going to be earned. So whoever is going to be playing the best in training camp, whoever is going to be playing the best in preseason will be getting the most minutes. And that is not even just from day 1. Halfway through the season, if someone's playing better, then he's going to be in the starting lineup. I feel like Thibodeau is going to miss a match. It's not going to be the same starting 5 throughout the course of the season. Everything's going to be different. So what's your take on that? And do you think that
I'm,
There's a chance.
I'm glad you brought up Nerlens. So obviously we've been hearing the Mitch discipline things, and so we've met Mitch like 3 times, and love the guy, but he's definitely like a young, fun guy. Like I asked him his favorite movie, and I know people know this now, but he was like, "It's Frozen." I'm like, "Frozen?" He's like, "Yes, it's Frozen." So Mitch is like a fun guy, and I think with Mitch, he's someone who, if you're coming from like the Thibodeau, Kentucky, like basketball elite level type of stuff, he can seem off-putting. And I think his demeanor can precede his who he actually is. So I can see, I'm just saying,
personality.
He's a goofy guy. So, and he's not someone who's going home watching tape. Like Mitch isn't like, you know what I mean? He'll watch it. I'm sure he'll watch it at practice and all that stuff. But Mitch isn't like a basketball obsessive guy. He grows into it. But you think of like Austin Rivers, right? Look at Austin Rivers' press conference at Media Day. And you could tell, obviously coming from like his dad and everything, the way he thinks and, lives basketball. Mitch isn't really that guy. He's a guy who's super athletic, probably loves playing the sport, but probably doesn't think about it at that extra deep level. Whereas Nerlens Noel looks to me, and he's had issues early in his career, but I can definitely see him now at 26 being that, really good veteran presence, but also someone who's going to do what the coaches want exactly like they want it. It's going to be a real professional. And I could see you talk about setting that example, laying that foundation, letting Mitch know, hey, and not just Mitch, everyone, right? This is a standard that we need. Professionalism is important, sticking to your role, all those different things. So we could see a situation where, like you said, Nerlens starts just to even maybe give Mitch a bit of a kick up the rear. So it'll be interesting to see. The reports have been coming out, and they talk about the Team USA stuff too with Mitch from a couple of years ago. And that one's interesting because he was at that camp with guys like Bam Adebayo, Jason Tatum, I think, was there. So all the young stars around his age, and I could see, looking at where those guys are today, Mitch looking very different in terms of just like their level of focus, just because of like who he is in his demeanor. But I will say as well, I think it's a little bit overblown. And I think if Tibbs gets to know him more, people have different personalities. Just because someone's a little bit different doesn't mean they're like, unprofessional or not committed. It could just be kind of like getting to know them, getting to feel them out. And I think Tibbs is kind of in that phase. But it's interesting, it's been a lot of smoke about it, and more than I expected, to be honest.
A little fun fact about Mitchell Robinson is me and him share the same exact birthday, like the same year, the same exact day. It's pretty crazy. So I'm like the exact same age as Mitchell Robinson. I look at him all the time. I'm like, wow, what am I doing in my life that you're out there? But
you're kidding it on YouTube, bro.
Yeah, right. You couldn't hit it more on the nail again, Terry. I think that Mitch, I don't know, man. I don't really think it's too big of a deal. Like you said, it might be a little blown out of proportion. Thibodeau did thrive about Mitchell Robinson's elite ability to block shots and be a rim protector. And I feel like Nerlens Noel is the perfect replacement for a guy like Taj Gibson to be the backup or potential starter. Just a rotational guy to be the opposite side of Mitchell Robinson, because we went from a veteran to a guy like Nerlens Noel, who is 26 and still hungry, still young enough to be fighting for a big contract, because he has a lot to prove. He was a lottery pick and he hasn't really lived up to his hype. And they both are kind of very similar. They're both rim protectors. They can both go up and catch the alley-oops. And I'm just excited to see that. So let's move on to another topic that we can get into about Kevin Knox, because Kevin Knox is been killing it in training camp. Apparently he's been the talk of it. Who is, everyone's like, oh, Kevin Knox. I feel like half of Knicks fans think he's a bust. Trade him, get him off my team. I had enough because he averaged 6 points last year. The other half is like, are you kidding me? He's 20 years old. He has all the talent. He just needs to put it all together. So which side are you on the whole Kevin Knox situation? Do you think he has ability to break out to be our starting small forward this year and in the future? Because my whole take on Kevin Knox really quickly is his rookie season. He showed us so much potential because he was the starter. He had all the minutes, 28 minutes per game. He had a game with 31 points. He had a game with 25 points. He was lighting it up from three. He was dunking on people. He was catching alley-oops. He was driving to the rim. He looked overall confident and comfortable. And we're talking about a 19-year-old rookie. And we're like, wow, this kid is going to be the next star for the Knicks. And then second year comes around. We go in there. We sign a bunch of veterans like Marcus Morris and all these guys. And that puts Kevin Knox on the bench. And then right there, I feel like that is what ruined Kevin Knox's confidence in himself. He went from 28 minutes per game his rookie season to 18 minutes per game off the bench, and he never got into a rhythm, and he just looked broken out there last year, unfortunately. I'm a big Kevin Knox fan, and I want to see him succeed. And now hearing all these things, he put on more muscle. He has Kenny Payne in his ear, he's familiar with in Kentucky, obviously. So what's your take on Kevin Knox? Do you think he has the ability to take that next step this year? Because it is year 3. And this is the year that Kevin Knox needs to do that, because when we drafted him, he was really young. And I'm like, okay, hold the brakes. This is going to be another Ntilikina story. We need to be patient with this kid. But now we can't really say we have to be patient because we're in year 3. So again, what's your thoughts on Kevin Knox?
All right, so Kevin Knox. I mean, I was at Summer League last Summer League that we had before all of this, and he was so good there, right? There's always this Summer League Knox. Where are we gonna get it? Year 1, like you said, right? He plays a ton of minutes, makes a ton of mistakes, but he does everything. He does a lot of good, a lot of bad, but it doesn't matter, right? It's your rookie year. He had some really good performances where we were like, whoa, like you said, you brought it all up, right? There were times we were watching Kevin Knox in year 1, and we're like, it's not all there yet, but it's definitely coming. And then when you look at his frame, right? There were a lot of kind of loose Giannis talk about Kevin Knox when he came out.
Yeah.
Just with regards to not him ever becoming Giannis, but he had a frame, like he was bigger. He's bigger than Giannis was when Giannis was 18, right? Yeah, even coming in. So you saw this, you see the size, you think of what you need in the modern NBA. You think of him playing the 3-4 hybrid, being a stretch 4, being able to rebound, block, because he can get better defensively. All of that looks so good. The worry was always his focus, right? Because he would get into games and he'd kind of float. And you wouldn't know if he was like that into the game, thinking about it that well, or if he was just kind of out there going through the motions. And then I think we always felt like he was someone who, if his confidence dipped, his game would dip way lower than it should. And I think that's exactly what we saw last year, right? Maybe threatened by the minutes for the vets. Maybe it's the inconsistency of minutes. Maybe it was the losing. I mean, like I said, we started 4 of 18. That sucked for anyone. And one thing I will say about Knox is the majority of his time was with David Fizdale. So when I look, I've been thinking about this so much, right? Like we judge so much of these players based on like their last year or whatever. But I'm like, Mitchell Robinson has only been with Fizdale really, except for Mike Miller for a little bit. Kevin Knox, same thing, right? RJ Barrett off like Fizdale and then Miller. It's like these guys, Dennis Smith Jr. as well. All these guys have spent, so much time with Fizdale, and it was pretty much a failure in the end. It's so hard for me to judge them overall because Miller comes in, he's coaching for a job, and then COVID happens, so we don't even see the season finish. So it's like at that time is even harder to judge. If you had a year and a half, and I look at Kevin Knox and I'm like, yes, last year was horrible, and last year definitely raised a lot of red flags overall. It was scary to watch Knox last year because I remember feeling like, wait, I know Frank tries. I could see Frank is like giving his effort out there. But Knox to me felt like, oh, whoa, is this guy even like locked in? But Kenny Payne, I think that is huge for him. Kevin Knox left college too early. I think we kind of all know that in general. He hadn't really done that much at Kentucky. The way the NBA works now, you're going to get these guys after 1 year and kind of train them up in your facility anyway. And even Calipari said that Kevin Knox is going to need a couple years. This is now the couple years later, so now is the time. I think the environment is perfect for him to succeed. It is so refreshing. I think one of the stories I don't think we expected to hear at all out of training camp, especially in the first 2 days, is that Kevin Knox is shining more than anyone. I would even say he kind of got forgotten a little bit over the summer, right? Like we're talking about the young players. There's a lot of talk about Frank and DSG at the point guard spot, about RJ taking that leap, about Mitch. And I think we all kind of just felt like, well, Knox is there. We'll see. But now it's here sounding like, okay, he can't. Apparently, it sounds like he was like the third best in the conditioning drills after like RJ and Obi. So he's taking that step up. Everything about him makes him a potentially really good player for us, right? Ability to hit the outside shot, his size, his length. There's so many things to like about him as a player. So you want to see us capitalize on that potential. This is the year for him. I will say this though, I still don't really know what prediction to make. He doesn't give me that much confidence yet that I'm like, okay, Knox is going to come out here and kill it. I will make that bet with RJ. I will put on the line that RJ this year is going to look that much better. We had 8 months off, and in that time, you saw in the bubble, guys came back in like year 3 form. Luka Doncic in the bubble would not have been that good if we had like a regular offseason. That extra time helped. So 8 months off at that age, RJ had all this time off, Knox had all this time off. These guys shouldn't just be like the next season. They should be like midway through the next season level of development. And obviously they're not playing games. It's different, but you get better in the summer. That's how the NBA works. And they had basically 2 summers, if you think of it in terms of time, to really work. I know Kevin took it seriously. When I hear him talk, you could see that he knows, like, kind of like, not to say time's up, but really if he's trying to be here long term, because I don't think, if he doesn't have a good year this year, despite the ties, I could see them dealing him in the summer or even somewhere through next season before they have to like think about re-signing him. So, it's up to him. I just want to see him really settle into a role. I want to see him not think too much, play freely, give effort, and do the little things. I remember there were times in the first season where even if his shot wasn't falling, he tried to rebound a bit better. And little things like that, especially with Tibbs, that's what's going to win you minutes. Tibbs is going to make sure Kevin Knox is not getting away with anything out there. So you talk about that father figure thing and like what Fizdale was. I think Tibbs is exactly what Knox needs. And he has Tibbs in one ear screaming at him for not playing defense, but he has Payne telling him, it's okay. Remember we did this at Kentucky? Let's get better. So I feel like for him, having that combo is exactly what he needs to get in the right headspace. Remember, his dad was a football player. I think Kevin Knox is so prepared for the life of an athlete and what it takes to be an athlete. Like, he knows it. It's almost like someone knowing it in theory versus knowing it in practice. I think in theory, he knows everything that's supposed to happen. And now it's just about putting it into practice, putting your money where your mouth is, all that good stuff. Shout out to CK2K. I see him in the chat. But yeah, that's where I think Mr. Kevin Knox himself. But yeah, I think I think this, I feel like the combination of everything, more so than like almost all the other young guys, really fits him specifically. Because I think RJ with anyone would have taken a bit of a leap. I think Mitch, even with his faults that we spoke about, he's still always going to be a positive guy on the court because what he does defensively is insane. But Knox, to me, he's really in the perfect zone with those two guys and like what we're doing here to really benefit. If he ends up being the starter like you predicted, I would be over the moon because he would have earned it. He would have to, because for Tibbs to put him in as a starter, it was not we're just putting you in there. He would have showed it in training camp. So let's see.
Yeah, man. Only thing we can do is hope, man. CK2K says that it is comeback season for Kevin Knox. I'm down for that. Yo, CK, if you want to join in on the stream right now, let me know. I'll send you the link. You can join me and Terry. But listen, man, Kevin Knox is going to be the talk of the season. I feel like for me personally, I've been a Kevin Knox fan since he came in. I felt like that we needed to mold him. And again, you said everything that we need to see from Kevin Knox. He needs to work on everything else. He needs to get his confidence. And I feel like right when he gets that mentality to get that work ethic and be like, you know what, I can really be next level in this league. I just need to really put my mind down and work. And he is a very underrated athlete. You saw that dunk on Ben Simmons. You saw him he can do everything on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, his frame and body can completely just develop. And I feel like his physical body is going to evolve into a potential Giannis. We're not saying that he's going to be the next Giannis Antetokounmpo, but what we're trying to say is he has the body frame to become huge. He has the wingspan. He has the length. He has the ability to shoot over people. He can hit the contested shots. It's, for me personally, I always compare to RJ Barrett with Kevin Knox because RJ has the mindset you want to have in order to succeed in the NBA and in life in general. Kevin Knox lacks that. And if Kevin Knox can start getting his confidence back, and a guy like Kenny Payne is someone that is going to really instill that confidence within him, that is where we are going to see another Kevin Knox. And I feel like that is a perfect segue into Frank Ntilikina, because Frank Ntilikina, I always compared to Kevin Knox in terms of the confidence, in terms of, we drafted him 8th overall. There's trade rumors. There's a lot circulating around Frank. And again, there's half Knicks fans that want him gone. And the other half Knicks fans are obsessed with Frank Ntilikina. And they just were like, yo, what do you mean? Like, come on. CK's down to join in. All right, I'll send him the link.
Bring him in for the Frank talk. Let's do it.
I'll bring him in for the Frank talk. So while I send him the link, why don't you give your take on Frank and what you expect from him in year 4 and go over the whole trade speculation as well.
Yeah, so the Frank trade, the Kings rumors, it's so weird. So I know who started it, and it was completely a joke on Twitter. But life is weird. You put things in the universe, they circle back around. Not to say that obviously the Knicks weren't already maybe thinking of the trade. But so with Frank in year 4, it's been such a crazy ride with Frank, right? He drafted number 8. There's all that debate before the draft, right? Of who should we take? Dennis Smith Jr., Malik Monk wearing the orange watch. I remember draft night. I thought we were going to get him. Donovan Mitchell, the week of the draft, you hear all these rumors that we're going to take him, so much earlier now. And people were against it at the time. I know a lot of people like to bring up Donovan Mitchell now, like we should have taken him. He was mocked mid-teens. The Knicks were one of the few teams that even considered him taking him at number 8. And when the news came out that we might take him at number 8, people were pissed. They were like, why are we taking someone mocked so low, so high? So don't bring me at Donovan Mitchell stuff. The fact that he was on our radar a little bit, I'm like, wow, that's not too bad. But when it comes to Frank, obviously someone who definitely was probably drafted too high. I think a lot of the issues with Frank and like the fans and how they feel about him has to do with his draft position. If he were drafted 15, 16, 17, 18, and you knew this is a project coming from France who's 18 years old, who's a defensive point guard who has to learn how to play in the NBA, people would already kind of understand, we got to give this guy 4, 5, 6 years because you're buying on this guy and you're going to see where he goes. With Frank, the biggest problem to me has been obviously his confidence and his lack of offensive ability. But overall, he was drafted by someone who was fired the week after. And the person who wanted him here the most, and this is not any advocacy for Phil Jackson, but I actually took the time to look back at Phil Jackson's press conference when he drafted him. Phil really did know who he was, what he wanted him to do, and the role he was going to play. And you have to remember, that team had KP on it, who was a budding star at the time, right? That team actually still had Melo, because Melo got traded that summer. I don't think we were going to keep him anyway, but still, you had Frank coming into a team where we already had that young stud. We're trying to find that next young stud, right? That we're hoping that RJ becomes that guy or Obi becomes that guy. We actually, KP was that guy in 2017. He actually did take that leap. We saw that leap from, this guy's a good young player to, wait, this guy's like a top 20 guy. And at that time, Frank and KP had chemistry. So the thing is, as an organization, when you draft someone, CK!
Hey, CK, join the stream. Welcome in, bro.
I don't want the strain of consciousness because Terry's out here spitting. So don't.
It's not even to defend. It's none of that. If you draft someone and it's a project, you have to have a plan in place. That's why I see now with Kevin Knox, right? Now I feel like, okay, there's a plan in place for Kevin Knox. We're trying to do the things to build him up. I really don't like this idea of, if the player didn't play well, it's his fault, he sucks. I'm like, dude, we've sucked for years with that mentality. You look at other teams, right? Their rookies are playing well. And like, oh man, if we had drafted him, these guys would suck here too. I'm telling you, Kendrick Nunn, right? I do not think Kendrick Nunn would have been in New York playing as well as he did last year for Miami. Culture matters so much. So guys like Frank and guys like Knox, who are more projects than RJ, they're the ones who, when it comes to culture, they're going to suffer more, right? Because they probably need that structure being stronger. So going into year 4, just to like wrap it up, I'm out here spitting, CK. You're right.
Yeah, I'm telling you, go ahead.
But just to get back to where we are, right? So for me, Frank has had this really weird thing where year 2 and year 3 were both cut in half, basically. His groin acts up by January of year 2. He misses the rest of the season, which would have been a lot of good garbage time for him to play. Heading into the KD offseason. So he weren't even trying to win. Just imagine him just playing out the rest of that year. And then last year when he I think last year going into, COVID happening, we saw the best of him, right? He gets that 20 and 10 game and you could really feel he's comfortable. COVID happens. So it's like in a weird way, even though he's in year 4, it almost feels like we're in year 2.5 instead of like actual time on the court. So for me, listen, I like Frank. I think the debate about him is way more than it should be because no matter what, and people get annoyed by his offensive ability, you look at the lineups, he's always been a positive player on the court. And you look at Marcus Smart, who drafted number 6, who shoots worse than Frank in year 6. Now, Marcus Smart's a good player. Obviously, he plays with more fire than Frank, and he's on a good winning team. But if Boston can stand by Marcus Smart and let him play and develop, I don't see why it's such a big deal for Frank to be a combo guard off the bench. If you just put Frank on the best player every night and tell him, dude, annoy that guy for 25 minutes, he's going to help you win games. We saw him do it last year to Luka in the clutch at the Garden. We saw him do it to Russell Westbrook. I'm not saying Frank is people like to throw around the word elite. I like Frank. He's not an elite defender yet,
right.
But he is a really annoying defender. And the fact that you can now spare RJ from having to defend a wing guy, right? Or anyone else who's more important offensively and just throw Frank on someone. And Frank can hit an outside shot. I'm not saying he's great, but he shot 32% last year from 3, which is up. And I think, he should get to 34, 35 this year.
I think so.
So I feel like just this debate about Frank is so much more than it needs to be. Let him be a combo guard off the bench. I'm not saying he has to start. Bring it in. Let him play defense. He's not Michael Kidd-Gilchrist where he's like a total nothing on offense. Right. He's still going to give you something. And the truth is he should probably give you more than something based on like where he's been, his development, where he is. So I'm like, I get annoyed with the talk because I'm like, it's so funny because I'm like, this is the quietest guy. He just does his job. And online, it's just like fire being thrown back and forth from both sides. I'm like, let the guy come off the bench, play combo guard, defend the best guy, see where he is. I'm not saying you got to keep him forever. If you feel like mid-season, mid-March is like the trade deadline this year. If you feel by mid-season you're not seeing that step forward and you feel like he's stagnating and you see a deal that makes sense, then I'm like, okay, cool. All good. Tibbs got a good look at him. But to me, I'm like, start the season, let it play out. I think we're going to need to be deep this season with COVID. I think it's going to be a lot of crazy 100%. Stuff happening. So I'm like, why is this such a big thing? That's what I keep going back to. All right, I'm done.
Yeah, so Terry just gave us the best Frank Ntilikina analysis you can possibly imagine. Thank you so much for that, Terry. And we got a new special guest, CK2K, who joined in my stream last week. What's going on, CK?
So I was just here to enjoy the show. I figured I was already late, so I just wanted to come in here and just join the conversation in the chat. But I'm glad to be here. I'm just glad to hear.
Of course, bro. Of course. If you guys are enjoying this triple threat combo, as someone mentioned in the stream, please hit that like button if you want to see more. Yeah, big three. If you want to see more Knicks Media, Terry, and CK content, make sure you smash that like button. So now that we got CK in here, we could talk about some more other Knicks content. Let's see. Okay, this is a good one. Name a sleeper on the Knicks who a lot of people are underrating.
Ooh.
Woo. So let's talk about a player that we, everyone's saying all these players, RJ Barrett's going to have a breakout year. Mitchell Robinson, defensive player of the year. The blah, blah, blah. Is there anybody even off the bench that's going to come in here? And I'm not saying light it up, but it's going to become – because you know how Knicks fans are. If one player just starts lighting it up, we're all super fans of that particular player. Right. So who's going to be that player this year? I'll start with you, CK.
So I honestly think that's two different questions, right? I think the sleeper player – God, I don't want to answer this because it's really contradictory for how I've been feeling. Terry knows this too. I really think the person, only because of who we brought on the staff. God, I don't even want to say it out loud. I think Dennis Smith Jr. might be a sleeper for us this year.
Hey,
I think with the addition of Johnny Bryant, I think this, with everything you guys were saying about Kevin Knox, I think that goes the same for a guy like Dennis Smith Jr. He finally has a staff that is actually bought in on him. It's one thing to be a fan of him, like what Fizdale was doing, like, oh, go out there, just do what you. No, they're a staff that's invested in him. And Johnny Bryant, like the minute the Jazz lost, it was like him and Johnny Bryant were already linked. A lot of their stuff's been behind the scenes, which I'm a fan of. And I'm not a crazy DSJ fan, but I do think that he could be our sleeper. Now, like I said, I think this is a two-part question because I think for what you're talking about, like the Michael Beasleys of the past, those kind of players, like that kind of guy. I think, and we're already seeing it, and I think it's not really much of a sleeper anymore because of how much people fell in love with him because of his interviews. But when we signed him, I really believed that was going to be Austin Rivers for us. I really think Austin Rivers was going to be that guy that just was going to steal the show. The dude's going to have a 22-point game, but it's going to be in the most dramatic fashion in the Garden, and everyone's going to lose their mind. He's going to have like 10 points in the first half, but all 12 in the fourth quarter, and people are going to lose their mind over Austin Rivers. I think Austin Rivers is going to be that cult hero is what I'm going to call him this season. I think Austin Rivers is going to be the guy that a lot of Knicks fans are going to be very excited about because of on the court and off the court. So I think that would be my pick there. So sleeper DSJ, an exciting cult hero, I'm going with Austin Rivers.
You're right. That is a kind of a two-part question. So I'm going to segue that into Terry because I'm very curious to see who he is going to pick for these underrated player and a sleeper player. Who you got, Terry?
CK expanded the question, so we got to get our game.
Yeah. When I heard that's how I felt it. I was like, I think that's two. I got two.
He's right.
It makes sense. I want to just quick comment on Austin Rivers, man. I would love it if he becomes like our Copeland or Novak. Knicks, like you said, cult heroes. I love those guys. So the interview got everyone hyped. So hopefully we see it. Mm-hmm. So for me, I got two guys. Omari Spellman. Big fan of.
See, that's someone I wanted to hear. Someone that knows talking about.
CK knows it. So CK2K and I, we were at Summer League watching him. Was he on the Warriors then, the summer league team that year?
He was on the Hawks.
The Hawks, yes. So he's on the Hawks summer league team. And I remember him from Villanova. I remember him into the draft. CK2K, and Macri, we were watching Omari Spellman. And I knew who he was, and I know his size, all that stuff. And I'm like, dude, he's so fluid. Like, his fluidity as his size makes no sense. And he's so skilled. I didn't even know until, do my research the past couple of weeks that he's shooting 36 from 3, which is pretty respectable already as a stretch 4. If you get that guy in the Kenny Payne conditioning gauntlet, get that guy up into shape, work with him, he could be someone who's a really nice piece off the bench, a guy you can buy low on right now and get the benefits over a longer contract going forward. So I'm very, very interested in seeing. And he's someone who you never know, right? He could get cut. He's on the fringes, so you can't really expect too much from him. But I'm hoping, because I like his makeup, I like what he can bring to the team. Young guy. I like getting these talents. We've been doing this a lot the past couple of years, getting these old talents, these young old talents, right? These guys that haven't panned out. But I think with the staff we have in now, we should see that actually lead to more things. So I'm hoping to see that from Omari. And my second guy, I'm a big fan of, Emmanuel Quickly. Shooting never goes old. And this guy could be a flamethrower. Now, his handle isn't that good. And he is coming in, not expecting to get minutes off the bat. And it's going to be a big jump for him coming in, playing NBA minutes at point guard or even at the 2. But he moves off ball. That's a big thing. We've had shooters in the past who just don't move off ball. And that's half the game. If you're not moving off ball, you're not getting open. Look at Duncan Robinson in the playoffs, just scorching guys, scorching them. They couldn't keep up with him. So IQ is going to do that for us. But also, he can pull up above the break. It's not just being a spot-up shooter. He can add a little bit more. He's got a nice floater game, and he plays defense. And that's something that really excites me. They asked him who was his defensive comp, Avery Bradley. I'm like, oh, okay. Because when people say guys that aren't just the biggest defenders around, then they pay a bit more attention to defense.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Shout out to Miles Powell. Today they asked him his player comp, and he said Patty Mills, which I loved. Because some guys like Miles Powell sometimes come into the league and think they're going to be Damian Lillard. But you got to be Patty Mills first if you think you're going to get there. So for me, when it comes to IQ, I think, again, he's going to have that staff having his back. I think he was picked 100% because of what we have going on in the back staff. I don't think the Knicks would have picked him that high had it not been for the Kenny Payne, Kentucky connection. I think Kenny Payne knew what he was getting in IQ. And I think, there are these guys in college where I think the coach knows, hey, this guy may not be killing it in college. And IQ was good in college. I'm not saying he wasn't. But you're this guy's going to be way better than next level. I think Kenny Payne could see that and knew that get this guy in the NBA, a more offensive league, more spacing, more shooting, IQ is going to feast. And of all the point guards, right? And like I said, I'm a Frank guy and all that. If IQ pops, you're getting defense and elite shooting in the same guy. He opens everything up. And in many ways, he would make DSJ, Peyton, and Frank a lot more irrelevant just because of what he can bring to the table. So IQ, I'm rooting for you, man. He's got a good attitude, his demeanor, his spirit. So I like that kid. That was a really nice pick.
Okay.
I'm happy with it.
I like it. So that's going to segue perfectly into this question. Who's your favorite player the Knicks signed in free agency? So this is another interesting topic because we signed a lot of players.
Yeah.
Whether it is the Maury Spellmans or the Austin Rivers or Maury Spellman didn't sign. We traded for him. So I guess this question could be anybody that we acquired that's not via draft. So CK, who's your favorite player that the Knicks acquired? Whether I'll change the question to free agency or trading.
Yeah. Mine's probably not the sexy answer. I'm really, really, really happy we signed Nerlens Noel. I've been crying and yelling and preaching from every rooftop. Me and I don't know if he's in here, but Delano Steele, me and him have been going back and forth. Get Mitchell Robinson a backup that can do the same thing that Mitchell Robinson does, and that is protect the down rim. And I think picking up Nerlens Noel, who had such an underrated season last year, I feel like it is just such a great pickup for us. Obviously the Kentucky thing, but like I said in my video today, I'm not mad about having all these Kentucky players. To me, that's just really good networking. So I'm not upset with it. If it's getting us a player that's going to do the job that we need, I don't care if the whole team is from Kentucky. If it amounts to us having a better production, I'm with it. So yeah, Nerlens Noel to me was a really big signing because we saw so many times that Mitchell Robinson. We know he didn't start, but whenever he wasn't on the floor, people were just tiptoeing to the rim every single time. And it was a cakewalk for a lot of teams, and it would kill us, especially in our miserable third quarters that we always have because Mitch is obviously not starting on the court. So to have 2 rim protectors, I'm really excited about that. So yeah, might not be the sexy answer, but Nerlens Noel is definitely one of my favorite pickups this year in the offseason.
Yeah, that actually is my pick as well, Nerlens Noel. I think we went over Nerlens Noel deeply in our stream together last week, CK.
Yeah.
Terry, so who's your guy?
My pick is Nerlens Noel.
Oh, we're all on page. We're all on the same page.
I got a secondary guy, but I'm not kidding. You're 100. You guys were spot on. Noel was the same for me because I remember like looking at who we signed, and I'll give you my other pick now because he was the other person that excited me. Once I saw we got Noel, I was like, oh, that's nice. Mitch did his best with DeAndre Jordan right behind him. Exactly. I love the fact that you can at least say we are here with 2 defensive centers, 48 minutes of rim defense. So I love it. But for me, it's Alec Burks. I think a lot of people just don't know him. I used to love him back in the day at Utah. He's a nice shooter, solid player. He's a much better playmaker than people think. I think he was 15 points per game last year. And he gets signed for $5 million. You compare it to Joe Harris, who's like, obviously Joe Harris is more of an elite shooter who's getting crazy money now. I'm like, we're getting good value for Alec Burks, 100%. I was on the 76ers subreddit and just reading what they said about him. And they were talking about him in the playoffs last year. There were times he was playing where they felt like, thank God he's on the court. He's organizing everything. So I think having someone that's smart next to RJ is going to be great just in terms of playmaking, hitting some shots, doing the right thing out there. Really, really, really like that signing. Those 2 in particular really stand out for me. Rivers, I was more iffy on until he spoke. And then I was like, oh, yeah.
100%.
Knicks players always win us over on media day. I feel like every year that's the best part about Knicks players. If you guys are new to the stream, make sure you smash that like button. We have over 300 people in the stream, which is pretty insane.
Awesome.
So if we get this over 100 likes, we're at 98 right now, and you're enjoying the dynamic between CK, Terry, and myself, make sure you do so, and we'll definitely give you guys more content. So let's get into another topic of discussion. I'll try not to think of one that I already asked CK last week.
You're good.
I want to hear Terry's, because we never really talked about Obi yet in the stream. So, Terry, you want to go deep into your expectations for the Knicks rookie, starting off with Obi Toppin, and give your little reaction to when we did draft him on draft night?
Yeah, so Obi, interesting, right? Pre-draft, there's all this talk about his defense. And I was never really look, obviously, we should be concerned about the fit and a lot of talk about Vassell and getting a better fit and all that stuff. But I think now we're all pretty much like Obi was the guy. Playing for the New York Knicks is not just, what can you do on the court? It's like the whole package, unfortunately, because of the city we're in. And Obi just really sums that up. And he seems like someone, the right demeanor. I like having an older rookie. Damian Lillard was an older rookie. Don't forget that, right? Older rookies aren't the worst. They can do really big things, especially if they can hit the ground running. You're now getting from age 22 to 26 of production on a rookie contract. That's insane. You're getting so much value for money there. So I could see Obi hitting the ground running. I think his defensive issues are not overblown because they're definitely there, and he is really slow-footed. But I think back to Amari. Amari's defensive issues really came to a front more when he started declining with the Knicks than it ever did when he was with Phoenix and they were just running up the score. If Obi is that dynamic on offense and his shot is looking way better than I thought it could be, I could see him hitting the ground running. I think we deserve a rookie to hit the ground running for once the last couple of years. I can see it. I think Obi's going to have a really nice season. I don't know if I can predict rookie of the year just yet, but I can see him in the top 5. He's going to produce a lot. He's going to get those raw counting stats are going to be nice. So I'm excited for Obi. I already spoke about IQ. I'm not really sure how he'd be used. I think he's definitely kind of like a guy that's going to be in the back. They're going to bring him along slowly, but hopefully by the end of the season, he's getting a solid 20 minutes a game, hitting threes. I'm excited for those 2 picks. I really like the draft that we had. A lot of athleticism, firepower, shooting, and just New York attitude. You could feel it. Obi texted IQ right after he got drafted. Let's turn this thing around. So I love it. Happy with the draft. Let's see what we can do with these 2.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun that we finally got a rookie in the building that we're not going to say, okay, guys, we got to be patient. We got to give him 3 to 5 years. That's what we've been doing with Kevin Knox and Frank Ntilikina the past couple of drafts, which is okay because you're drafting someone that's a one and done out of college and you got to groom them properly. And that's a traditional way to do it. But getting a guy like Obi Toppin, who is from New York and is 22 years old and is a quote unquote NBA ready, and you see the Knicks posting training camp videos of him with the most beautiful jump shot I've ever seen. I mean, is he going to be spacing the floor? Is he going to be one of our best 3-point shooters? Because what the hell? I understood he had a jump shot, and I don't want to overreact over training camp videos, but still, he definitely has a fluid form, which is really refreshing. Yeah. And I think he's going to be probably our best rookie in a long time, just in terms of his production on the court, his rookie season. You know, RJ Barrett, we expected a little more from him, but at the same time, I feel like he did not disappoint in any means in terms of what he brought to the table. I feel like me and CK brought this up last week. RJ was starting to get into a rhythm right when the season got shut down, unfortunately. Right after the All-Star break, his numbers were crazy, and he was dropping 20-plus points. He was getting a lot of boards. He was getting his teammates involved. He was playing good defense. He was playing overall, all-around good basketball, and it just sucks that had to happen to RJ. So that segues perfectly into RJ Barrett, because I'm curious to hear your take on RJ Barrett and what you expect from him. We'll start with you, CK. So just what do you expect from RJ in his second year? Do you think he's going to be taking the next step to be the guy? Is he going to be featured in the offense? Is he going to be a guy that's going to be Tom Thibodeau's focal point? Like, you know, because Thibodeau is known to run his guys thin. Whoever his star player is, like a Jimmy Butler or a guy that he plays 40 minutes a game. Is RJ going to be that guy?
I think I think my answer stays the same as with last year. I just think it's such a hard question to answer because of the reason why RJ Barrett, in a lot of people's eyes, didn't really take off the way that he probably should have taken off. And I think it's just because of a lot of the other – it's a little bit of wiggle room that he has in that starting lineup because he has the Julius Randle that's right next to him that's trying to get his own, especially in a contract year this year. It's going to be really, really questionable to see how that's going to be. I want to say yes. In theory, with everything he showed last year, with, you know, the chip on the shoulder, with everything he's showing us and we're hearing from his interviews and what he has to say and the attitude and we're seeing in the videos, like, yes, the answer should be yes. But it's hard for me to sit here and comfortably say I think that RJ Barrett is going to go and turn this quarter. I expect that he's going to have a better season for sure. I think we're going to see his jump shot improve, which is what I think a lot of us are really looking forward to, right? The jump shot, his defense, want to see those things improve. He showed that he can do them at the NBA level to an extent last year. So now he just has to improve those. But I'm still with Julius Randle in the starting lineup. And again, no knock on Julius Randle. I feel like anytime anyone says something, it's like a shot at Julius. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying the two can't coexist, and that's not a knock on either one. They just don't work together because they do a lot of the same things. So I want to say in theory that I really hope that, you know, Thibodeau and RJ build this bond where, you know, RJ can go out there and, you know, start to make that leap into the player that a lot of us think he will be. But as long as Julius Randle is going to be on that team, I don't know what version we're going to get of RJ Barrett this year. It's hard to tell. It's really hard to tell.
It is hard to tell. And the only thing we can hope is that we don't see RJ Barrett get iced out in the second half if he lights it up in the first half.
Talked about that last week, man.
We talked about that last week, and it was just so frustrating. Yes, Terry, we were getting so upset because how many times, Terry, did you see RJ Barrett shoot 9 for 12 in the first half and have 23 points at half? And then you're like, wow, RJ's about to have a 40-point game. This is crazy. Like, he's on fire. And then you just see Alfred Payton and Julius Randle run pick and roll for the rest of the game. So, what's your expectations for RJ, Terry?
So, CK, I'm glad you gave a more tempered, RJ expectations, because I think, I'll be honest, like I said, we're all fans, so it's easy to buy into the hype. And everything about RJ tells you it's leap year, right? He's about to do it.
Right, yeah.
But it does matter. It does matter who's around him. It does matter how the coaching goes. Now, something we brought up earlier, Richie, just talking about basically Tibbs versus Fizz, is RJ, even with a lineup that's not really optimized for RJ's strengths, you imagine with Tibbs, it's going to be just smarter basketball. The offense is going to make more sense. It's going to click more. Mm-hmm. All RJ has to do for me, because I actually say his defense last year was way better than I thought it was going to be. I thought RJ was actually going to be a bit of a liability. And for the most part, he was below average, but he was pretty much holding his own. I think he's going to be fine defensively. I don't think we have a ton more shooting than last year, but I think the shooting will be used more effectively. So for me, I just want to see RJ hit his free throws, man. If RJ can hit his free throws, which I think he's spoken about it. I think it's a big focus for him. If he can hit his free throws and play like how he did 8 months ago towards the end of the season, that alone would make him such a better player this year. And then you have to factor in the 8 months that we've spoken about. And RJ is a guy who like grinds in silence, doesn't say anything. Yeah. You really get the feeling like, okay, this could be that leap. He's going to take that leap that we see from other young players across the league. These other young players that people think are better than RJ, and they're not better than RJ. They just didn't have to play for the Knicks last year with Randall and Fizz. So I just feel like, RJ, we're going to see more of what we saw, 8 months ago. But the lineup is a worry. It is a worry, especially at least beginning of the season. I think maybe they build up Randall's value and they move him on. But CK, you said it too. RJ and Randall do so much of the same stuff on the court. They both really are not floor stretchers. They get to the rim. They're good rebounders. Both of them, they're left-handed, so they actually literally end up in the same positions. Yeah. It's crazy how it lines up because, you wouldn't really. I think when we drafted RJ and signed Randall, that didn't hit me initially. Then I started watching the games. I'm like, this is like a shorter, younger brother version of him, but he's a little bit smarter. So I'm like, RJ needs to be freed and liberated. I think you even saw with Frank, right? Just because Frank gives up the ball sometimes when he crosses half court, it freed up more for RJ. Peyton's there dribbling the ball, and Peyton's a solid point guard. Mm-hmm. But RJ needs the ball in his hand. He needs a floor stretcher, which is why, I bring up IQ if he could work out. So I really, really got to see like what the lineup is to really feel like how I feel about RJ in terms of his overall game. But I think on an individual level, he's definitely going to hit his free throws at a better rate this year. And I think his scoring will go up a bit. I'm not expecting 20 points a game or anything like that. But 18. If he can give us like 17, 5, and 4, I'd be like, cool. You know what I mean? Because I would know lineup dependent. Then next year, we could actually see a lineup that's more optimized for RJ. But good leadership, good defense. I want to see the rebounding, actually. Last year, I thought he started really well rebounding, and it kind of tailed off near the end. So I want to see him start like that again, hit his free throws, and hopefully, he has a bit of a jump this year. I don't need the big explosion this year.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point. If his free throws are a little bit concerning just because he did not hit the free throws, but the one thing about it is he averaged, I think, 7 free throw attempts per game, and James Harden averaged 7 free throws per attempt per game his rookie season. So that tells you a lot. That tells you that RJ Barrett has a knack to go to the rim and draw the fouls. And that is what good scorers in the NBA can do. And if RJ can get more consistent nailing the free throws, then I feel like if he does that, he could be a 20-point per game guy just in terms of his free throw ability, because he's a guy that is a relentless finisher. We all know he has that dog mentality where, how many times do we see RJ Barrett go to the rim and absorb contact and just look like a grown man? And he was a 19-year-old. That's someone that you just like, wow, like that is something you don't do when you're a 19-year-old rookie. That's something that you develop in your game. And that's also something that's not coachable. It's not something that a guy like Kevin Knox, that Kenny Payne can be like, hey, Knox, you got to be able to absorb the contact and finish at the rim. It's either you have it or you don't. And RJ has that ability to just be a relentless finisher. He's a posterizer. He's just a guy that can drive into the paint, finish and one. So I feel like that is a big X factor. Is he going to get better at the free throw line? Because if that's the case, he's going to be putting up way better numbers in that scoring category. So that's really, that excites me, because I feel like RJ Barrett is such a score mentality. Whether he was in high school or at Duke, he was always putting up crazy numbers. And I feel like 17 to 18 points per game is very realistic for him. And hopefully he does do that, because he has all the potential to put the team on his back. And another big X factor for RJ is his 3-point shooting. If he can get consistent from there, he has the ability to do it. He just needs to get more consistent. He needs to work on his form, which I don't think will be a problem. If he can space the floor, then RJ is going to be really good. And I don't want to hype him up too much, but again, if he can start hitting his free throws and hit the 3-point shots, that's a lot to ask for, but that's what's going to unlock RJ Barrett to become ridiculous. So this segues into another good question. Who will be the best player on the Knicks this season? So we got a lot of players, new players. Is it going to be RJ? Is it going to be Mitch? Is it going to be Randall? We don't know. So when it's all said and done, who do you guys think we're going to look back on this season and say, yeah, that was the best player?
Ooh, that's a really good one.
That's a hard one.
That's a good one.
I mean, these predictions are really hard because you're never gonna. It's hard to get them on the nail, but it's okay if you're wrong. We're not gonna look back at
I'm not worried about being wrong. I'm wrong a lot.
Yeah, bro. Ooh,
man.
Yeah,
I don't even have an answer, man.
I'll give you some quick. I'll give you some quick that just like my thoughts on the topic. Last year, Marcus Morris is our best player, right? So if I'm just looking at like who's going to go on the court and play well, I think Alec Burks is going to be solid. You're not going to look at the end of the season and feel like, oh man, Burks, he didn't give us anything. I think he's a pro. He's been doing this at a good level. So I think Burks is going to be solid. But you don't really want any of these veterans to be the best player at all. You're hoping that the best player is one of these kids that takes the leap. So ideally, it's RJ. If it's RJ, then we're in a really pretty spot. That's what happened in 2017, right? When KP took that leap, the beginning of that season, it was our young guy. I mean, it wasn't really our old team then. But still, KP took that leap, clearly showed everyone after Melo that he was the best player on the team. Yeah. So we got to hope for that. I see someone saying Randall in the chat. It's interesting because I do, as much as I don't really like Randall that much, I do see him having a bounce back year. And I see people being way more friendly to Julius Randle overall. But Richie's taking a break. CK, what do you got?
I'm still here. I'm changing my battery in my camera.
You're good. No, you ended off perfectly. And again, it's just like the DSJ revelation. I think it might be Julius Randle yet again, because people need to understand there. You can look at any player that you can ever think of. How were their stats on their contract year? I really, truly believe because of not only just the contract year factor, but like Terry said at the beginning, and I've said a few times, we're also going to be showcasing him to possibly, hopefully move him by deadline. So I feel like because of those factors, the opportunities for Julius Randle are just going to be there. So it's up to him to take advantage of it. Again, contract year on top of possibly being sent to a contending team. I feel like he takes advantage of that. So although it's not the answer I'm sure the chat is looking for, and whoever's watching this after the fact, I'm sure it's not the answer. Everyone wants to hope that it's Mitchell Robinson or RJ Barrett, or that hive that wants it to be Frank Ntilikina. I really think realistically, I think Julius Randle is probably going to be that guy where people will be like, well, Julius Randle was the better player for us, but it doesn't matter because we want RJ Barrett now. I think that's going to be what we're going to be saying at the end of this season.
Yeah, Julius Randle is an interesting player because I feel like 98% of Knicks fans want him gone. But, and Randle is he's interesting because he's not a bum. He's not a terrible basketball player.
He's not.
But you just can't stand him dribbling into thinking he's LeBron James and being a point forward because he's not. He needs to get the proper coaching. And I think it would be beneficial to move on from him just because of the fact that we drafted Obi Toppin. Maybe if we didn't draft Toppin and we went the point guard route, maybe no one would really want to trade Randle because if we traded him, we wouldn't have anybody at that 4. Mm-hmm. I feel like Obi's a big reason why we want to move.
Exactly.
And I mean, Julius Randle put up good numbers for us last year at some times. He had 35-point game. He had a clutch bucket to win us a game. He put up 18 rebounds. Listen, I'm not a Julius Randle fan either, but I just want to make you guys understand that he's not a scrub. He's not like a player that is terrible. He's a guy that's still finding his ways. He can get to the rim. And you guys brought it up, a perfect explanation for this, that RJ and Randle are literally the same player playing the different positions. So that's why it's not really doesn't mesh well. I just don't feel like Julius Randle's is a good fit. And he takes too many threes. Stop taking threes, Julius. He can't stretch the floor. Stop doing it. He tries it. He swishes one, and then he shoots 5 in a row, and it's just so infuriating. I feel like the way he plays just gets us upset, and it comes down to him.
That came from deep. I can feel the hatred.
Yeah, right? And that goes back to icing out RJ Barrett. It's just it brings back nightmares of just seeing him, RJ like this in the corner, yo! And then you see Julius just turn the ball over, and you're like, yo, RJ Barrett's red hot. Why does he not have the ball? I don't understand it. But that's why Knicks fans can't stand Julius Randle, and I'm right there with you. But it's funny how I feel like Julius Randle is the one Knick that we gave a big contract to that almost all Knicks fans aren't a fan of, especially for me. I mean, this is the first time in my lifetime that the Knicks go out there and sign a big-time player, and not a big-time player, but they give him a pretty hefty contract, but not a max contract, but good. And I wasn't a fan of it. I was like, okay, I'll try my best. I'll be optimistic. Let's see what Randall can do. And then I'm like, nope, Randall, you're not my favorite player. I don't want you on my team. It's really interesting, right? Because we root for our players. We want the best out of them. But I think the best case scenario for Julius Randle this year is he plays lights out and we trade him at that deadline. But at the same time, if he does play lights out, if that means we're winning ball games, then we're not going to trade him because that means something's clicking, right? So, and it's also funny because we never really bring up Julius Randle in these streams because that's something that no one really wants to talk about because we want to talk about the RJs. We want to talk about the Obis.
No. You don't want to lose viewers, bro.
Yeah, right?
Exactly.
Richie, I think you really brought it up. Like, I know, like, even going into the offseason, there's a general sentiment, like, let's move on. But the Obi pick just, solidified that. So now you have our two best young players. I mean, Mitch notwithstanding, Obi and RJ, like maybe the long-term hopes of the franchise, are both so affected by Julius Randle being here. It's kind of like, why are you putting this blockage in front of like the most important thing for the franchise? So I feel bad for him in a sense because like his birthday, they posted his birthday and oh my God, I felt so bad. Bad. And look, he dribbled too much fizz, had him bringing up the ball, a lot of issues that I don't think will be here this year, which is why I do see him looking a lot better. But he's a guy who needs spacing. That's the thing. Julius needs spacing. So when you have a guy like RJ who also needs spacing, it just doesn't click, and you kind of like got to pick between the two. And we're picking RJ every time. So let's see what happens.
Yeah, there's a lot of players that I want to hear your guys' opinions on. Just not players, but the position because it's such a crowded position, and that's the guards, the 1 and 2 spot. We brought in so many players. A guy that I always forget is still on the Knicks is Reggie Bullock.
Yes, me too.
You know what I mean? I completely forget. Everyone's like, oh, Reggie. I'm like, oh, wait, Reggie, he's on the team.
Yeah.
I mean, think of all the players, and I'm probably going to forget some. We got Austin Rivers, Dennis Smith Jr., Frank Ntilikina, Elfrid Payton, Reggie Bullock, Emmanuel Quickly. I'm talking about guards here, CK.
It's just like, man.
Oh, yeah, Iggy is another player, actually. Can we talk about Iggy? Thank you for bringing up Iggy. I want to talk about Iggy because I'm a big Iggy fan. I feel like he lit it up in G League last year, and he deserves to make the roster. And we have how many? We have 20 players on the roster, and we have to cut it down to, I believe, 15.
Yeah, did anything change with the new regulations, or is it still 15?
I believe it's still 15, but we have a lot of players, so we have to cut 5. We have Theo Pinson and Jared Harper on 2-way contracts.
Right.
And we have Powell
Jacob
on
Evans.
a contract where, Jacob Evans. So
yeah,
he's a guard too. He's a guard, right?
He's a guard too. Yeah.
So what's your guys' thoughts on the entire feeling of the guards and who's going to make the team, who's going to get cut? I mean, it's a loaded question, but just go off. Either one of you guys.
It's a lot. And what's crazy about it is last year I felt like we were kind of stacked at the guard position. Like it felt like it. Like looking back, probably not as much as I thought. But then what's crazy about this year is Burks, Rivers, and Bullock are all vets, and it's very likely one of them does not play at all. So it's not even us talking about like one of the young guys not playing. They're like vets who may not be playing on this team. So I don't know, like Rivers, it's interesting to see what role Rivers ends up playing, whether it's the backup 2, whether he plays some 1. We didn't even bring up Quickly, and just like the way we just brought up, Quickly's there as well. Miles Powell, if he makes the team, it's so hard to make sense of what they're doing at the guard position. That's why I think we all feel like there could be another trade coming. I feel like it's kind of quieted down, since we got into training camp. But I don't think any of us would be surprised if we get through training camp and preseason, and then they say, okay, time to make a decision. Let's do this now. Because it literally doesn't make sense now. We have to get rid of people. So it's stacked. I'm not the biggest fan of, we got all these guys, they're going to fight it out. I genuinely think that sounds good in theory, but players need roles. Teams need to know where players stand, and players need to know where they stand to be a good team. You hardly see teams with a ton of guys just interchanging minutes and everyone's fighting and for their minutes and everyone's getting better as a result. You kind of got to focus in on some people. So we kind of do need to clear it up a little bit. And hopefully we do, and hopefully things make sense on the court. Hopefully RJ plays more 3, so maybe we don't even have him in this discussion. There's a lot to figure out, man. It's confusing. I think that's why me and CK, for once, I didn't know what to say.
Yeah, me too, bro. That's always like, you can have it, man. Yeah, because It's a hard question to answer. It's just so hard. And like Terry just said, like, and we talked about it last week, Rich, because when you asked for my starting lineup and I had put RJ at the 3, and you're just like, well, why would you? But you think about it, who are forwards? Like, I guess you can move Iggy to the small forward. I mean, he's more of a guard because look at the way he plays. He's more of a guard. I mean, but he could probably play some more forward this year. Kevin Knox. I mean, I guess Michael Kidd-Gilchrist is supposed to be a small forward, but he hasn't been playing a small forward for a few years. So it's just like we don't have a true forward because we have all these different guards. And if anything, we'll be having Bullock play the 3 in this new NBA and stuff like that. But does Bullock even get minutes? Like, I don't know. And to stem off of exactly what Terry said, like, I'm all for the competition. I do like it. I agree with you. I do like it, but it cannot be a season-long thing. And that is our problem. Every damn year. We're back when the NBA ended in June or the season ended in April, May, whatever. It'd be March, and we're still talking about we're still competing for our starting point guard. It's like no. After the All-Star break, if you're still doing this, then it's not competition anymore. This is bad coaching. So I'm for the competition. We do have a lot of vets along with younger guys that can compete for the starting role. But like Terry said, the players need to solidify where their role is, when they're playing, how they're playing. You need to know this for the team to move in the direction of trying to win some games. I'm not going to say winning games because we still know, it's a long way for that, but at least trying to win games and the magical C word, build a culture, So I feel all that comes together. But as far as who is going to make it, who's not going to make it, I'll tell you who I feel like is not going to make it, and I'm not happy about it, is, I think Miles Powell is going to get left out. I mean, he's going to probably go and kill it in the G League. I think Trey's dude and your dude, Richie, IQ, I think he's going to get left out, unfortunately. I think he's going to be one of those guys that makes multiple trips back and forth between Westchester and the main team. I think that happens for him, but I think he gets left out. I think Iggy gets another short end of the stick again this season. I think a lot of the veterans, I think, are going to be the ones that are going to predominantly play a little bit more. The Alec Burks, Austin Rivers, he has his injury, so maybe that might be the opportunity for IQ to step up in the rotation. Who knows? But I just think that a lot of the guys that we want to see and we were excited to see, I think we're going to have to wait on because it's just we're just so deep, and unfortunately these vets all fill a need, and that's scoring with our shooting. Austin Rivers can shoot, Bullock can shoot, Alec Burks can shoot at a very efficient clip. So because of that, I think a lot of the guys that we want to see are going to fall to the wayside and be in G League this year.
Yeah, I think another big factor that we need to realize as well that I always forget is this NBA in general is evolving to a positionless league.
True.
Where you don't have to be labeled as a shooting guard. You can play the 3, you can play the 1, you can do this. And people are talking about Obi Toppin playing the 3. I mean, Terry said put Obi at the 3 in his lineup or something. I think pretty sure.
Not in my lineup. And what I think might happen. Don't put that on
that's
me.
What it was.
Yeah, me either. Yeah, I don't like it. I'll entertain the 5 conversation, but if I see him at the 3, oh my god.
Yeah, so we are going into an era of the NBA where it's positionless, where anybody can line up anywhere. And it's going to be interesting to see what the Knicks do. There's another player who's going to make the team, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. Like, is he going to be the 15th man? Is he going to be left out? And I just really hope that they give the young players enough time to show what they got. I don't want to give all the veterans the minutes because then we don't know what's going to happen with our young core. We want to build a foundation within the core, but at the same time, we want to get the veterans minutes because these veterans are not old. I mean, we don't have one player on the roster that's 30 years or older, which is insane. So if we do get a guy like Alec Burks or Rivers that plays at a high level, that's good for the future in terms of, okay, I mean, Austin Rivers is on a 3-year contract, but Burks is on a 1-year. So if Burks plays well, yeah, we'll give you an extension because you're a part of the role players, veterans, because there's no NBA team in this league that just survives with only young players. You need to win. You need to have a good mixture of young and veteran talent. And I feel like we have a good dynamic between that. So it's just going to be interesting to see who's going to get cut, and it's going to get right into the preseason. So to finish off the stream, let's talk about our expectations for the preseason because that kicks off this Friday, which is pretty fun. We got Friday Night Knicks back. Terry, you want to say
MSG.
Oh,
yeah.
I was about to say, keep going. That is the greatest song in the history of music.
It's either the best or worst song ever. I can't every night.
I'm just committed, just loving it. I'll just take that. I'll be the meme. I don't care. I've committed to it.
I know. Me and my friend in college, every Friday night, we would just wait for it, put our speaker at highest volume, and just go crazy to it. All right. So Terry, what's your expectations for the preseason in general? And maybe you can give us a starting lineup for preseason because we didn't get to that. So who's going to get the minutes? Are we going to win? I don't know. It's a lot. But just talk about the preseason.
I do not care about the record unless it's like 0-4 or whatever. I do remember what was it the first preseason? We won every game. We went 3-1.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, we're 3-1. So yeah, hell no, I don't care what happens. For me, I think obviously Tibbs likes shorter rotations in general, like once he gets into the regular season. But I am hoping we see a lot of experimentation. That's one thing that's kind of always bugged me about our preseasons the past few years. I think we haven't really like experimented as much as we could, right? I don't really want Obi at the 3, and I'm not an NBA coach. So if Obi is at the 3 works, let me see it. Let me see what it could look like. So I want to see hopefully a lot of experimentation. Like we just said, we have so many guys. We got to see how combinations work. I think one of the biggest issues with last season was we had so many guys, but we'd never really put the right guys together at the right time. So even though we brought in more shooting, it didn't click or make sense. So I'm hoping that, we have more experimentation in preseason. We only have 4 games. So obviously it's not, and the whole season, it's all shorter. It's not what it usually is, less time overall. So, we can't expect too much, but I'm just hoping in preseason, we see a lot of experimentation. I don't even want to get into specifics. I just want to see a lot of different things tried out, see what works, see what doesn't work, and then start adjusting. I'm hoping that by the 4th game, we then start to see, okay, this is 80% of what we're going to see in the regular season. This is what they've been working on. We kind of worked out the kinks in the first couple of games. All right, this is something that we can now take into the start of the season. So that's really my expectations. Honestly, I even struggled to give a lineup because, we kind of gave like earlier our like projected lineups. Yeah. I would love if Tibbs came out on Friday with something I never thought about. Like, if Tibbs came out with like this crazy lineup, because then I would feel like, okay, maybe these guys are killing it at training camp. Maybe this is something that he saw that works. Let's see it. So use this time to experiment. The record does not matter. No matter how hungry Knicks fans are for basketball. Yeah. There's no one in the garden, so take that as you will, and let's try some stuff out.
Yeah, I think the preseason is going to come down to just the guys gelling together because we have to really understand, and we haven't really mentioned this, what is going on with this Knicks team and just in general the NBA because it's so untraditional what's happening in terms of the draft and the free agency, and training camp started this week. So these guys are practicing together for 1 week, and then they're playing a preseason game, and then they have to play basketball against real opponents for regular season on December 23rd. So just putting in perspective of this Knicks team is going to not be gelling right away. And I feel like it's going to be where the first month or so, we're not going to be competing at the level we really want. But my expectations, what I'm hopeful for is by the All-Star break, we are finally gelling. I feel like it's going to be a gradual time for this Knicks team to gel because again, they literally have less than a month to practice before regular season, which is ridiculous. So I feel like this preseason is a good time to put our expectations out there. Who's going to be playing, test out the waters, experiment, and try out some exotic lineups, like Terry said. So CK, what's your thoughts on the preseason Friday Night Knicks coming back Friday?
No, everything you guys said, I'm echoing y'all's statement. And the biggest thing, too, that we're not even talking about is we got blessed with the best 2 teams to do all that with. We're playing the Pistons and the Cavs. Like, that gives us we can do whatever we want and play around with whatever we want without worrying about getting blown out. I understand it's the preseason, but, you don't want to do all that and then get completely killed, experimenting. These are the right teams to do it. The Pistons probably going to be doing the exact same thing. We're going to see LiAngelo Ball, who has not been in the NBA his entire life, and he's gonna be playing for the Pistons right off the jump. So it's like we're playing the right teams to do that kind of stuff. I'm with Terry. I don't want to see Obi Toppin play the 3, but hell, let's try it now in the preseason and prove me wrong. Please prove me wrong and let it be a thing. Hopefully Austin Rivers can come back in time, let him run some 1 with the second unit, and maybe he will be one of the better options we have at the point guard position. I know we have enough point guards, and I shouldn't add him to the conversation. I get that, but you never know. So yeah, I completely agree. Experiment, have fun with it. Rock the rotation of Mitchell Robinson and Nerlens Noel. Whatever you want to try out. Try all this stuff out. I want to see it. Just to the point where my biggest thing, like we mentioned not too long ago, just keep the audition short. Okay. I don't want us to be like finishing the preseason, still talking about we're not sure what our starting lineup is going to be. A la Fizdale. Like we be going 3 games into the season talking about I'm still not sure what our starting lineup is like. No, have an idea going into the regular season. Have fun with it, experiment, see what works, see who doesn't work, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, I'm let's get crazy with it. If Miles Powell starts on Friday, let's get it. Like I'm ready for all options. But like I said, just keep the audition short and at least have an idea going into the regular season.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. We finally got New York Knicks basketball. We have almost 400 people in the stream right now. You guys are phenomenal. If you guys did not already, make sure you smash that like button because you guys are showing me so much support. I'm so thankful to be the new part of the Knicks community. And I'm so thankful to be, again, collaborating with these 2 fellow Knicks YouTubers who I've been watching for years. And I'm just very happy that you guys joined in on the panel today. And we're going to end the stream right now. And we'll go around the table one more time and we'll say our goodbyes and what you got in store for your channel for the next couple of weeks, because the Knicks basketball is coming back and it's coming back hot. And if you guys are not subscribed to these 2 gentlemen, make sure you do so. I leave the description to Terry's channel down below. Did not do that to CK because I did not know he was joining, but you guys probably know CK by now. Type in CK2K on YouTube and give him that subscription. And again, make sure you hit that like button. We can get this over 200 likes. That would be phenomenal. We're at 194. That's ridiculous.
Like it. Give it a like, guys. Come on.
So to finish off the stream, we'll go around the table one more time. Terry, what's going on in your channel? What could we expect? And just say your fellow goodbyes.
What's up? Okay, so Richie, thank you for having me on. This stream was awesome. CK, thanks for joining. I haven't seen you, bro. It's so long. I know Richie brought us back together, bro. So
Richie,
the Knicks community, baby. So on the channel this week, obviously we're following up everything heading into Friday. My mom and I are thinking of going live for the last 5 minutes of games. You have no idea how crazy we get during games. So maybe we'll do that Friday. Just the excitement. We're fans. I like to go crazy. So I'm excited to get the season started, man. We've been doing all this talking. I'm tired of hearing myself talk. I want to have real things going on to talk about. So I'm excited for Friday. We're going to be dropping a lot of content as usual. Thank you for having me on, Richie. Really appreciate it. We're definitely going to do this again. This was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm excited to have your mom on as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna get her here next time for sure. She's got a lot of hot takes. She's not a fan of Knox. So she will go in on Kevin.
Oh no, Trey.
So I'm gonna we're bringing it next time. She's gonna hate me for saying that out, but I'm gonna get her on.
TK, how about you, man?
Oh man, you know me, Rich. I'm not big. Just go CK2K. You'll see when I upload. I'm uploading a lot more frequently now, just like you said. I'm gonna be on it. But big thing is I'm over talking about speculations, rumors. I'm just ready for some actual basketball. But like I said, that's not the big deal. What's big is shout out to my man Richie, Knicks Media. I'm so glad that you're doing this. Like you told me the story last week. You were doing your Jets thing. You decided to come over to the Knicks and look at you being embraced. Because we love having you here. So for real, anytime I love to be on. I literally was just gonna come here and join the show on the chat, and here I am sitting with you guys today. I'm glad I did. So
thanks for joining in randomly.
All right. Yeah, no, of course.
Yeah. Be here. So again, thank you so much to Terry and CK for joining on the stream. We're going to be doing more of this in the future. So make sure you subscribe to Terry, CK, and subscribe to Knicks Media if you're not already. Lots of Knicks content in store for these 3 channels. Again, thank you guys for joining in and expect more Knicks content in the future. Let's go Knicks. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out, guys.
Peace out, guys.